For the record, Tanya Wilson with Community Planning and Development Department. This resolution is a request for site plan approval for the property located at 950 Northeast 124th Street. The Mayor and Council may recall this item was heard back in March as a condition use permit for the allocation of 175 residential units for a mixed-use project. But the code does require that the site plan associated with that development be reviewed by the board at a subsequent meeting. So the request before you is for approval for that site plan. I'm going to walk the board through, and also for the members of the public, an overview of the project itself. So familiarize you with the request that you're hearing this evening. So again, the location is 950 Northeast 124th Street. It's currently a vacant site.
Okay.
The size is approximately 1.95 acres. It's zoned public use with a land use of community facility. It's also located within the neighborhood overlay district, which allows for mixed use on the site. The density within the neighborhood redevelopment overlay district allows for 90 dwelling units per acre. In terms of the proposal, it's anticipated as 175 elderly housing units with 5 levels of garage parking. They're anticipated to have 224 parking spaces as a part of the project. The residential portions include up to 6 stories above retail that's consisting of 31,053 square feet in size. The ground level is anticipated to have both retail, office, and restaurant uses. There's quite a bit of landscaping that's contemplated within the site proposal itself, and I know the architect is here and will walk you through with additional detail in his presentation. There's also a 35 feet wide linear promenade that's anticipated as a part of the site itself to allow for that pedestrian activity on the ground level for seating areas. There's also an activation with public art that's contemplated as a part of this mixed-use project. In the way of affordable housing, 15% of the units will be set aside for affordable housing as a part of the proposed project. Looking at the economic impact, there is an economic impact analysis that was done as a part of the project. It's anticipated to create 239 short-term construction jobs. In terms of the impact fees, we're anticipating 1.7 million in the way of impact fees from the generation of this project. There are also 99 direct and indirect full-time jobs that are anticipated annually. In the way of ad valorem taxes, we're anticipating over 890,000 in annual ad valorem taxes to be added to the tax base based on the construction of this project. There's also 160,000 in total sales taxes that's anticipated. In terms of the impact itself, in terms of the housing stock, we know that over 70% of North Miami's housing stock is at least 50 years old. So this will introduce new residential units that's needed within the periphery of the city's downtown to allow for additional retail activity and retail demand. So we know that this is a significant impact, not just from an economic standpoint, but even in terms of creation of affordable housing and new residential housing that's needed within the downtown district itself. So the site plan was reviewed by the Development Review Committee, and it's deemed to be in compliance with the city's land development regulations. In terms of the remaining portions, the public art piece will still be required to be reviewed before the Art Selection Committee. And if approved tonight, the applicant will be able to move forward with requesting building permits. Those building permits would have to be obtained with at least within the next 18 months for the project to be viable. And again, there's a restrictive covenant that's contemplated to allow for restriction for folks that are 55 years and older. I do know that the agent and architect are here and they wish to make a presentation at this time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, City Attorney, and Clerk. My name is John Della Gloria, offices at 1065 Northeast 125th Street. You all know that this item has been before you on many occasions, in addition to the 5 public hearings we had, or the 5 public meetings we had with the neighbors. And this evening, along with myself, we have the developers, Mr. Mo Yagubi and Mr. Marcelo Tenenbaum. Mr. Marcus Frankel will be making a presentation, a brief presentation. And we also have the landscape architect, Mr. Barry Miller, and Mr. Joaquin Vargas, our traffic consultant. So if there are questions, we have everybody here available. As far as this being a quasi-judicial hearing, I would make as part of the record the staff report, which recommends approval, and any other documentation or boards that we're presenting this evening. Very quickly, as I say, we've had many meetings in front of the public and here, and what the plans have been shown to affect the concerns of the public. Originally, there were going to be entrances into the garage from 123rd, 10th Avenue, and 124th Street. Those have been eliminated. Only 124th Street will be ingress and egress to the project. One of the last concerns that the public had at when we had our conditional use approval was there was a public area which was going to be on 123rd Street, and many members of the public were opposed to that. They thought it might be a place where people might congregate, and so that has been eliminated. And nothing on 123rd Street is going to be an entranceway or any public area. As I say, we've been here many times. Hopefully the next time we see you will be at the groundbreaking. And right now I'll turn it over to Mr. Frankel to put you through just a short presentation. As I say, I know you have many people here on a rather large item. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And congratulations to the new councilwoman, Mary Estemi Irvin, and Mayor. Congratulations. Marcus Frankel of Frankel Benayoun Architects. I'm here with my associate project manager, Gladys Risco. My partner's doing another presentation in another city tonight. Ifat Benayoun is her name. We also have a terrific team that John mentioned. We have our landscape architect, Barry Miller of Savino and Miller. Extraordinary landscape architects, have done very significant public projects throughout all the cities in South Florida, including North Miami, including your walkway system from, I believe, 6th to 10th Avenues on 125th Street, and many other notable projects around South Florida. And we have Joaquin Vargas of TrafTech, who's also our traffic consultant, as well as our parking consultant. I'm very proud of our developer team. They've completely committed to this project. 3.5 years it's been going on. We've gone through many changes. As John mentioned, there was a development program has been evolved significantly and changed over the 3.5 years. We had a lot of helpful input from your city planners, from Tanya Wilson-Sejour, Debbie Love, Derek Cook, who was in charge of the DRC process, Amanda Murray. Back in the earlier days, it was Nixon, LeBron, and we just had a lot of great input. And then we had a lot of good input from even the city consultants, such as Kittleson, who handled your traffic and parking consulting. And then, of course, there's the neighbors. The neighborhood of south of on 123rd, south, east, and west. We had many meetings with them. We learned a lot from them. We made a lot of changes from them. As John mentioned, the only access to the site for vehicles is on 124th, so you can come down 10th Avenue or 9th Avenue to get to our site on 124th, and then exit on 125th, not impacting the neighborhood. The parking garage is another item. It's completely concealed and cocooned, so to speak, by buildings around it, which are the residential buildings I'm going to show you in a moment, and then also landscape parkways between the garages, the garage structure, and the residential buildings. Essentially, we are committed to 4 primary goals and objectives that shape this design. First one, of course, is a model facility for mixed-use housing, affordable, 100% affordable. 175 units are all affordable, and they're beautiful, but that's for you to determine. And of that 175, 15% are affordable workforce as defined by your ordinance. We have studios, 19% of them are studios. That's 34 units. 24% are one-bedroom, one-baths, 41 units. And 57% are two-bedroom, two-baths. In addition, we have an important balance of amenities and neighborhood functions, such as about 9,000 square feet of retail, which will include a cafe on 124th Street, 11,350 square feet of professional office, which we believe will be primarily medical as it relates to Villa Maria Nursing Home across the street and the St. Catherine Hospital. Not an ALF, but just medical offices. We're shooting for those types of tenants. And then there is the freestanding garage, which is 5 stories, as I mentioned, totally screened and cocooned. Slide? Okay. What's the matter? Go to the first one.
Where's IT, please? Oh,
First one, the landscape. Okay, well, there's your site, which you see is 124th, 123rd on 10th Avenue, surrounded by fantastic oak trees and mahogany trees. To the right is Villa Maria Nursing, and to the left, a block and a half away, is your City Hall and your Cultural Arts District, MoCA. The next image, which is very important and one of our important objectives, is the trees. This site is magnificent. I'm sure you've all walked it and driven around it, but we have 16 oak trees on the perimeter, all either in the right-of-way or and on our property. We're keeping them all, 16 on this. There's, I don't know, 3 or 4 on 10th Avenue, 12, I believe, on 123rd, and 3, I'm overcounting, maybe 9, 10, and then 3 on 124th Street. So in effect, you're going to have a development which is mixed-use housing in a park. I mean, that's really the most beautiful aspect of this project. The third item that's important to us is that it is a mixed-use facility, totally compliant with all your codes, and you're changing codes. This started 3 years ago, but we had the NRO that came first, and then modifications to the NRO, and then your LDRs came, and we complied with every single one, in addition to all the county issues, the handicap ADA code, and then the neighborhood mandates, which we spoke of, and I'm going to show them to you in a moment. And then the fourth item is that we mean and are enhancing, beautifying the right-of-ways, all 3 streets, so that they become really great public spaces for pedestrians, for gatherings, for events, perhaps, and connections. These right-of-ways, 123rd, 10th Avenue, 124th, will be the connections to all aspects of this building and to the neighborhood. Okay, that is a quick image right now that shows the building from an aerial view. If you were on an airplane or a bird flying, you would see that up, and that's the only way you'll see all the buildings, because if you're on the ground, whether in a car or a pedestrian, the trees block the buildings. But that shows you the total comprehensive campus there. 123rd at the bottom of the page, 124th at the top, 10th Avenue on the right side, and then there's a 5-story garage which has a recreation center on top of it, which adds to the greenery of the buildings. The next, please. This is how you would see the 3-story building on 123rd. We actually took 2 trees out. Those are the existing trees, so that you could see the building. But it's basically, the trees are 45 to 60 feet tall. The building is 32 foot tall. On the ground level, on the left side, is residential courtyard units, and on the right side of that building is some professional office space. This image is walking down the promenade. The neighbors wanted to see a great promenade, as we do, on 123rd. So from the building to the curb, it's literally 54 foot 6 inches of greenery, which is meandering walkways, lots of oak trees on the right side, which are not in this image, and then a whole lot of other great indigenous and tropical landscaping up near to the building. And that terminates at the corner of 10th Avenue, and right across the street from there is a visual connection to the promenade, which is like this, on Villa Maria Nursing Home property. So if you walk to, next corner, please. You walk to this corner, this is the corner of 123rd and 10th, and on the left side is the promenade, and as you cross the street, you'll have a similar beautiful promenade that goes further to the east along Villa Maria. This is the view along 10th Avenue and 124th. The largest building is on 124th. It's 7 stories, 6 levels of residential units, actually 96 units in that building, 38 units in the building on 10th Avenue, and 41 units on the 123rd Street, the south building. But this image takes you to 124th around the corner, and then we have another image which shows you the character that we'd like to achieve there of the pedestrian ways, the gathering spaces, the cafe restaurant that we were trying to get on the corner of 124th, and then all along 124th will be about 4 or 5 different kinds of retail services and goods and services. The last, now we're going to quickly show you the plans which you've already seen, but you see at the bottom of the page is 123rd. I think the most significant thing about this slide is if you look at all the greenery around the buildings, it's totally surrounding the buildings on 123rd, 10th Avenue, and 124th. Okay, in the middle is the garage, and on the middle of 124th is the only vehicular access into that garage, coming and going. We have no parking on 123rd except 1 service space. We have 6 parallel spaces on 10th Avenue in the right-of-ways if you want to keep those parking. And we have 6 more on 124th Street, plus another service space and a sheltered bus stop. The next slide shows you the character of the 3 buildings that surround that garage. Again, the 3-story on 123rd, the 6-story on 10th Avenue, and the 7-story on 124th. Surrounded by greenery around the buildings as well as around the garage. This image, the next image, is the 4th floor. So you see that's the rooftop of the 3-story building on 123rd. And then the 4th floor, all the buildings connect via open walkways at the upper levels and at the ground level. And they also connect to the garage with direct access. And the next slide is the 5th level. This is very important because that is our recreation center and our green roof system on top of the garage. It's about 11,000 square feet, and it has on the right side of it a fitness gym, an outdoor trellised area that could be for yoga, and a deck for yoga or any other activities. And then in the middle, a little park, which can also be a playground for the kids that may live here or the visitors. Remember, this is seniors, but it's 55 and older. And 55 seems to be getting younger every year. But so you will have children visiting and maybe even living, and then, or grandchildren, of course. And then to the left side of that pool is a recreation pool terrace with a spa and a good-sized 60-foot swimming pool. The last image is the 7th floor of the north building, and you can see all the buildings look down upon that recreation center at their upper floor levels. And that is the actual roofs of all 3 buildings, again looking down on the rooftop of the recreation center. The last slide, I believe, there's a section here that shows you vertically how the buildings stack up. On the right side is 124th. Retail at the bottom, 6 levels of apartments above. It's cutting right through the garage, and you see the recreation center on top of the garage, and then it cuts through the 3-story building backing up to 123rd Street. And this last slide is the last slide, and it's a, those are the courtyard spaces. The DRC wanted to see what really is going to happen in those courtyards. Those are the spaces between the residential buildings and the garage. The one on the left is a 7-story res building backing up to the 5-story garage, and the one on the right is the 3-story building back into the garage. So it's really about the landscape, it's about the greenery, about the light, the air, the view, and the services that are being provided for the senior housing and for the neighborhood. That's really all we want to show you now. We have slides of our, well, the landscape slides are here. If you'd like to, I can roll through them real quickly. You want to see that?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And now we,
All right.
and before we move forward, it's quasi judiciary, and we want to know if anyone on the dais meet with the applicant, and if you can disclose that on record, please.
I met with Mr. Della Gloria and Mr. Frankel, and I want to mention, I don't think anybody's taken the oath in this room, have they?
Not yet.
Okay, so we still need to do that.
Oh, can you do that?
I've also met with Mr. Frankel and Mr. Della Gloria.
I had a a conference call with John De La Gloria and Mr. Frankel as well.
And
And
I met with Mr. Frankel and Mr. De La Gloria.
And I met with John De La Gloria and the person representing the applicant. And now, before we move forward for public hearing, Madam Clerk, can you swear in those?
All right, can everybody hear me?
Not,
All right,
you have the list. You got to go based on this, the list.
no, we're going to swear them all in at the same time,
Okay,
and then you're going to
okay. But if you, what about if everyone want to speak?
We're going to swear everybody,
Okay.
so if they're going to speak on each.
At what point we're
Let me
gonna
get this on
stop
the
taking
microphone.
cards? Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
All right, can everybody who wishes to speak on the items G or H, or G
No, it's one at
and
the time, no? You're gonna do, okay. Okay.
Anybody who wishes to speak on items G and or H, please stand up. Raise your right hand and repeat. Can he just say do? All right, so I solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, once again, if you plan on speaking on the item, you will need to fill out a card for each item. That means if you gave a card, if you turned in a card for G and H, so G/H, it's gonna be counted for G, not H. If you
Thank-
put a check mark, it's not gonna be counted for either tab.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and now,
And speaker cards are in the back, I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Speaker cards are in the back by the entrance. Oh, we ran out? If we ran out, I have a few up here.
thank you very much. We are going to start with tab G. Marisol Medina. And Richard Anez, please.
Since we have the card, do we still need to do our standard introduction, name and address? Okay. So my name is Marisol Medina. I live at 1270 Northeast 124th Street. I'm here in support of my neighbors that are against having the drive-through at Wendy's. I know
We're
it's
talking
a-
about tab G.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me, that's mine. Haha. I got a little mixed up there.
Can you go ahead, please? Tab G.
I'm glad to see that there have been improvements in the landscaping and in the way that they've presented the project. I did not get to hear the rest of the presentation, so I'm unaware if the communal, the public use element is still being served with maybe access to those. No, it's completely gone? So that little roundabout
No,
area
thank
that
you
you're
very much. No, no,
considering?
no, no, no. no.
Okay. I
Ask
do
your
have
question,
my
please.
time frame to discuss and talk about this issue. If I don't understand it, this is my time to speak.
You won't be able to talk to the applicant. You express
He was
yourself.
kind enough to address
Please,
it, so I'm glad I'm moving forward.
I'm the chair of the meeting, please.
So, it has been a long discussion for this issue, so I'm glad we're coming to a close on it. and these men have worked hard on it. So I give you that acknowledgement. We are worried it's the first supercharged tall building that is in our area, and a lot of those neighbors that are going to be immediately affected are not in this meeting to discuss how they felt about the building, even though they're putting the tallest one farthest away, which is great. They're going to be affected, and this sets precedents for everything we're gonna build moving forward. So I hope that the visions that have been put on those pictures are what we see, that greenery is really going to be there, and that we do get to keep all of those beautiful trees that take a long time to grow and that are protected. I know you're probably gonna get rid of some trees, cause you have to get a permit for that, so I imagine that there will be something there removed. But I just really hope you hold them accountable, and you guys hold yourselves accountable to keeping that as beautiful as we can. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. After Richard Annis, Robert Osted, please. Yes, sir.
Richard Anise, 13030 Northeast 10th Avenue. I've been in favor of this project from the beginning, when it had an ALF, when they only had a 35-foot setback to match Villa Maria. I think they have made huge, huge concessions to satisfy the neighbors. You could have had a storage unit at a 10-foot setback on 123rd Street, or a storage facility, or many other things that could be there. For many years, this was an empty parking lot, and the only time that there was activity was when the church met at the Break of America building on Sundays on the second floor. They have since moved, and that's the only time there was ever any activity on that parking lot. It's been dormant and dead for years. This project is great. It was fine when it was workforce housing, senior. It's fine what it is now. Like I said, they have made huge concessions, and it was fine in the beginning. So I think they've really gone above and beyond. I mean, we're at a point now, you've already approved this. So I don't know if a bunch of people are gonna get up here and say they don't want it. They can't stop it. All you're doing now is approving a very, very good site plan. If you want to tweak it or if something changes, that's fine, but this has got to move forward. It's been a long time coming. They've invested a lot of money. You know, if you didn't want it there, you could give them $7 million and you could buy the property and put something else there. So you just need to, you know, if you don't like some of the things in the site plan, I don't know what you wouldn't like, but I think at this point, you really just need to move forward and approve this site plan and get this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Howard Tom King. Robert Hosted is not here, left. Howard, and then Jim Garrett. Yes, Howard.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and City staff. I would like to speak
Can
in
you say your name again, please?
Oh, sorry. I thought I did. Howard Tonkin, 12600 Griffin Boulevard. I would like to speak in support of this project. I think it's very important that we address the housing crisis that will be unfolding in our city moving forward. When Councilman Galvin mentioned how many of these repetitive lost properties do we have, I shudder to think at how many we will have in 10 years from now. So addressing, you know, new housing inventory is a really important thing for our city, and it's the type of project that's going to move our city forward in the right direction. The project is located on what is fairly high elevation in our city, and that's really important too. So, you know, as we start to lose some of the former tidal sloughs that run through our city, it's going to be very important to create a dense footprint in our city of this type of building. So I would just speak in support of it. Maybe not the travelers palms, because that would be a nightmare for mosquitoes, but if they did a lot of native planting, that would also be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Halina Medina. Jim Garrick first.
And please let me speak all the way through. I have a speech impediment, and let me speak, and then afterwards, if you want to call me a name in the book, that's fine. But just let me speak all the way through. Jim Garrett, 11610 North Bay Shore Drive. This week I spent a lot of time with a real architect, a real registered architect, my father. And I took my father by that site, and I showed him these plans, and I took him around the city here that I live in. My dad said that this plan looked like Eaton Residential College down at University of Miami, or one of the crappy dorms out at FIU, or the new North Miami High. I'm not against the 175 units, John. What I'm against is the design. And I think there's been some changes. It's too much density. If you're gonna have this much, buy the whole block. I'm for the concept of the project, but what we do in North Miami, we squeeze everything into the most smallest space. Look at the design over here for the Dollar Tree. We put our shopping center in the front, and you'll be able to go there. Every major project in this city, the Dollar Tree on 7th Avenue, the design, the architectural plans are beautiful, but the realization looks ugly. It looks like a college dorm room. Seriously, I'm in the college business. It looks like a dorm room. It looks like a dorm thing. I mean, and the elevation, I'm not against 7 stories, but we have a 7, 6, 3, and then we have a 5. We're just cramming too much space. I look at the design, there's no public space. The space between the garage and everything is going to be probably this wide. We're going to put 2 palm trees in it, and then we're going to have ADA violations. And then we only have 1 entrance and 1 exit out of this place. That's a fire safety issue. I know that. And you won't get insurance if you do get insurance, it's going to be high because it's only 1 entrance. A building has to have 2 entrances. I know that because I served on building committees at the University of Miami when I served there. I think this needs to be revamped a little bit, put it back. We don't have a North Miami design. If this is the North Miami design like this, it looks like the high school. I'm sorry. Right now, I'm not for it in its current state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alina Medina, then
Good evening.
Jessica Alston. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Alina Medina, 1270 Northeast 124th Street. I was not for this size of building in this lot with the movement of the NRO line to accommodate this size of building, but I have to say I do like the percentage of apartment allocations they have, so that's good, so I have to recognize. And I do worry about the size or the amount of the parking spaces, if it's gonna be enough still for the apartments that we have. And so I hope and encourage our city officials to possibly maybe for future development, maybe do surveys or something that will look into what is it the city of North Miami residents want as development, because mainly we have storage, apartments, housing, and restaurants. And so maybe something a little bit different to keep the families entertained in our city and attract people and families to come here and live here.
Thank you
you.
very much,
Thank
Jessica
you.
Alston, then Bill Privatel, the last person.
Jessica Wilson, 1140 Northwest 125 Street. I do acknowledge that you worked very hard on this project, and grateful for your devotion towards it. I want to acknowledge the setback of the, I don't know if I'm using the right term, the 15% affordable housing units. I just was wondering if it could possibly be 20%. But I hope this sets a precedent to what other developments that happen in the city, that there will always be affordable housing set aside in whatever developments are made. Thank you.
William Prevatel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I'd like to speak in favor of the project, as I have in the past. I think for all the reasons mentioned by our Director of Community Planning and Development, all those positive factors, this is quite a commendable project for our city. I'm glad to see it's part of a larger idea. It's more multi-dimensional than most of our other projects. Commendable that they're able to save all of the oak trees. No easy feat. Very commendable that they're able to hide the parking within, and to make it a more inviting sort of environment. I hope you pass this, because we're going to need this project and more projects to get through the next few years. Even with what happened at 5 o'clock today, maybe the dawn of something that's going to be changing, and that will help perpetuate an economic concern. I'm hoping that our city will be able to reap the fees from this. We'll be able to have workforce there building it, and we'll be able to have valid, good jobs, not low-end unskilled jobs, but some skilled labor at this location as well. I hope it inspires our community, and I know that the people there are not going to be penned in there, locked in permanently. Those people are going to habitate our downtown area. We've been looking for that for years, years. And especially if it's an older population, they're probably not prone to get in the car, drive out 50 miles to do something, to visit a restaurant. They'll be here in our community, and that will help perpetuate our downtown corridor. I think the artistic nature of it, at least that has been tried and incorporated, will complement our MoCA Museum. And I think we should all welcome this with open arms, hope for the best, and if there's anything else that they need to make it any better in any possible way, I hope that we can do that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is now closed. No cross-examination by city staff or the applicant. And now on the dais.
Just want to thank the developers. You've been patient, taking 3 years to get this project to where it is now was really a feat. You've worked so hard with the residents. We've been working together on this for 3 years. You've made changes. You've got step backs. You will probably be the only project with a 35-foot setback from the street. You're keeping the oak trees. You've done a beautiful job. You've just done everything. Unfortunately, you took away the LF, which I thought was greatly needed, but you know, you talk to the residents. We only have a couple entrances because the residents didn't want them. There's a lot of reasons why we have some of these things, because we've had to make the residents happy. So congratulations, and I wish you luck this evening.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilwoman.
So I just wanted to verify whoever can answer this question, because I think there's a mix here. I heard it's all affordable, but I know that there's a 15% that's based for workforce. Is that correct? I just want to clear that up.
The 15% is as required by the city, but it's all senior, and it is all workforce if it wants to be, and it's all affordable.
Okay. And what's the measurement that you're basing your affordability?
And for that, we've asked one of the developers to come here because he knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
Good evening, all. This is Mo Yagoubi from Trice Development at the 111 King Concourse, Bay Harbor. Since we've been working on this project for the past 3.5 years, we started. My reports are somewhat outdated. However, to answer the question regarding the affordability, we started this project was going to be financed as a tax credit. Thereby, it would have been all affordable. However, those programs have gone away, and currently we are working with HUD that perhaps will fall in that same category. Okay. We are not sure yet. Depending upon who's willing to finance this project, aside from the 15% that it's been promised to be truly affordable, the rest of it will be, depends on the financing. Okay. And it may very well be a market rent based on the whether we are going to finance it ourselves and develop it, and or depending upon the lenders. However, on the 15%, we will have across the board about 9 units of each type to be dedicated, to be truly affordable. That means 9 studios, 9 one-bedrooms, and 9 units of 2 bedrooms will be affordable. As far as the formula is concerned, the affordability is based on 60% AMI, average median income, which based on my report was at $40,000. That means that at least one resident has to have minimum $24,000 of an income. Or if it's a husband and wife, or couples, or other significant others, then it goes up from there on. Back in the day, we had done many studies in terms of the average rent, but at this point, we need to go back once the project is approved to do a whole new market study to determine the rent schedules.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I'm kind of glad this project is coming to fruition. It's been, like Vice Mayor Keys mentioned, 3 years in the making, and we had a lot of back and forth, especially with the community. Last year alone, when this project was in front of the commission, we had to set a special, I host a special town hall meeting with residents from the area. Over 65 residents from the area attended the meeting, and as a result of this, a lot of the compromise, and when I mean compromise, they truly made a lot of compromise with the developer in terms of what they wanted, the vision of the project, the density and the setbacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as well as the green area that you see around the project. I had wanted to see some activity, some more community activity base, but the folks that was there from the community, from residents from the area, wanted something else. So we compromised. We came with that. So Mr. Frankel, this was a phenomenal work. I know it's been, you guys compromise a lot, and we truly appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to have this project finalized. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
I have a motion made by Vice Mayor Keys to approve the item at tab G. The motion was seconded by Councilwoman Estime Irvin. Councilman Galvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilwoman Estime Irvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Bieneme, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Desame, how do you vote?
Yes.
Item passes with a 5-0 vote.
We greatly appreciate your unanimous approval, and again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. On behalf of the architects and the team, we're very grateful for your considerations. We have put together a calendar of
Thank
our projects. You can keep them if you'd like. You get three months left. It's the year 2019. But
Thank you.
prominently displayed is this project as well.
Thank you very much. And now tab H, please. Silence.
Tab H, proposed quasi-judicial resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, acting as the zoning appeals board pursuant to section 2-501 of the land development regulations, considering an appeal of a denial of an application for a special exception permit pursuant to Article 5, Division 1, Section 5-101, parentheses E, of the land development regulations, LDRs, to allow a proposed drive-through in connection with a Wendy's restaurant at the property located at 13400 Northeast 3rd Court in the C-1 district. Said special exception to be reviewed under the criteria set forth in Article 3, Division 5, Section 3-504 of the LDRs, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Thank you very much. I understand it's another quasi-judiciary item, and we need some explanation from the city attorney.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Actually, this is a quasi-judicial matter. It's slightly different than anything you've all seen before. As you know, we changed the LDRs, and as part of the LDRs, we included the fact that you all would sit as zoning appeals board. This is the first time this body has actually sat as the zoning appeals board, so I just want to make sure you understand the standard of review. As an appellate board, you will not be conducting a de novo review. In other words, you're not rehearing what the Board of Adjustment heard and rendering your own decision. In fact, the city's code specifically mandates that no new testimony or evidence will be permitted. Additionally, arguments on appeal will be limited only on behalf of the appellant, the appellee, or the city, and the attorneys on their behalf. The public will obviously have an opportunity to participate during the public comments section of the hearing. The most important thing to understand as your role as the appellate body is, again, you're not rehearing what the Board of Adjustment heard. Instead, in order to reverse, amend, modify, or remand for amendment, modification, or rehearing the decision of the lower board, the Zoning Appeals Board shall find that the board or official below did not comply with any of the following. And the code gives you three things that you need to consider, and it's whether the Zoning Appeals Board provided procedural due process. That's number one. Number two, observe the essential requirements of law. Or number three, base this decision upon substantial competent evidence. If you find that they did all three, then obviously you sustain what the lower body did. If you find that they didn't comply with any of those three, then you would have to reverse what they did. And actually, as I said just now, your options in terms of your decision is you can reverse an order to reverse what the Zoning Appeals Board did. You can amend what the Zoning Appeals Board did. You can modify what they did. You can remand, which means send it back to the Zoning Appeals Board for amendment, modification, or rehearing. So those are your options in terms of what your decision can be tonight. If you have any questions, obviously I'm here to answer. Thank you, sir.
Do we have any question on the dais before we move forward with the item? No. And now we are going to open it to the public. And let
No, if I can, then, just so, I mean, we just did it just now in the last quasi-judicial, but in terms of procedure, the first order of business is to disclose if you've had any discussions with anyone regarding this matter. And then there'll be presentation by the city staff, presentation by the applicant, public comment, cross-examinations by all the parties, rebuttal by the applicant if they'd like, and then closing a public hearing and then discussion among the members and then your decision.
Okay, thank you. The first thing, and did we had any conversation with the applicant?
I disclosed I spoke to Mr. Book, Ms. Mollett, Ms. Hill, and Mr. Michael Hill. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I spoke to Mr. Book a couple weeks ago, and I had about 3 or 4 conversations with some of the residents.
Thank you very much.
Right, I also met with Mr. Ron Book and Kelly. I also met with a couple of residents, a couple of residents on the matter as well.
And
Oh yeah, I did speak with Mr. Book. Greetings. And probably got an email and phone call from about everybody else in the room who's here on this one.
thank you very much. I met with Mr. Book, and I received some emails and talked to some residents. Thank you. And now, do you have any presentation by city staff?
Tanya Wilson with the Community Planning and Development Department. Staff will provide a brief presentation just to provide an overview or background for the mayor and council as well as the residents that are present. So the request before you is for an appeal of the special exception rendering of a denial before the Board of Adjustment. And this is for the request of a drive-through facility for a 2,164 square feet Wendy's restaurant. The address of the property is 13400 Northeast 3rd Court, and that's on the southwest corner of Northeast 3rd Court and Northeast 135th Street. The size of the property is approximately 2.1 acres in size in totality. It's zone C1, so it allows for commercial uses. Restaurant is a permitted use as of right on the site. The denial was rendered back in December 2018 of last year. And that's just a depiction of the site plan, particularly for those at home. That's also in your packet. And as the city attorney mentioned before, based on the zoning code, the action of the Zoning Appeals Board is to affirm, modify, reverse, or remand the Board of Adjustment decision. And based on the outcome from tonight, the applicant also has the opportunity to appeal the board's decision, the mayor and council's decision before the courts. So I'm going to turn it over to the applicant so they can make their presentation at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council. Jerry Proctor, I'm an attorney with office at 9130 South Dataland Boulevard. Here representing Citadel Plaza, the property owner, Mr. Daniel Abreu, the principal of that owner, is here with me tonight. I'm also joined by Ron Book and Kelly Millette, by Paul Tremblay and Eduardo Carcacci from our development team, by Ms. Natalia Lacari, who is our traffic engineer, who I'm going to ask to follow me in the presentation, and by Ms. Saris Lugo of Wendy's. We are all here to answer questions and try to help move this along and help you come to a decision. We are here, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, to ask that you reverse the decision of the Board of Adjustment. We're here to make that request because we believe that that decision was not based on substantial competent evidence and that it misappropriated the standards in the code. And I'll get a little more into that, but I think the first thing I want to do is orient the board in terms of the site plan, the property, which is part of a larger shopping center, and the community. And I think that's most important when we start to talk about the Wendy's and the subject of what you are hearing tonight, which is a restaurant, an as-of-right restaurant with a drive-through, which is the subject of a special exception. I have put in front of me the site plan of development. The shopping center is zoned C1. This property was zoned commercially in Miami-Dade County even before it was annexed by the city. And when it was annexed, it obtained the C1 classification. The developer, Mr. Abreu, has developed a Family Dollar store adjacent to the proposed Wendy's along 135th Street and a retail building in the back, side or south side of the property. Both of those buildings are one story. They are located as shown on the plan. And I think that one of the more important things that I want to talk to the board about is what has been built and what will be built in terms of the Wendy's and the development. Because the other buildings, the Family Dollar building and the retail building, have been built. They're completed and they're open for business. Both of those buildings are one story. They are located as shown on the plan. And one of the things that you have to look at and your staff has to look at when you look at a hearing for a special exception is what is the impact of the special exception on the area? What is the scope and size and impact overall of that special exception on the community, and where's the community located? What's the character of the surrounding area? This proposed restaurant would be located on the corner, the southwest corner of 135th Street and 3rd Court, as shown on the plan. It will be one story. The buildings that exist surrounding it on the same property are also one story. The buildings that exist will block many or all of the impacts of the Wendy's from the surrounding area, particularly the surrounding residential area to the south. The residential area to the south is zoned R4, could permit up to 12 to 14 units per acre, and that community will be separated at its closest point from the drive-through, which is what we're here talking about tonight, by 135 feet, by a parking lot, another building, and landscaping going back from north to south toward the community. A separation of 135 feet. And I would say to you, when you look at this property as a whole and look at this in context of what's around it, what's around this Wendy's is our development. We are 135 feet from our closest neighbor to the south. I'm talking about the drive-through area in the rear of the Wendy's. We are over 200 feet from our west. We have the Family Dollar that intervenes from the Wendy's to the west. We have additional commercial property to our west. So the residents along Griffin Boulevard, some of whom we have spoken to, are separated by 200 feet within our property, additional commercial property that will be developed, and then you hit their area along Griffin. We have high-density residential to our north, and as I said earlier, and I think this is really most crucial, we have a separation of 135 feet, a building, a parking area, and landscaping to our south. This developer has developed this entire property in excess, in many cases far in excess of the code requirements. The code requires a 10-foot commercial building setback on the south side. It's developed at a 20-foot setback. The loading area that serves this center is located internal on the site near the Family Dollar. It's not in the back. It's not adjacent to someone's home or someone's driveway or anything of that type. The setback along the east side, which is Third Court, is about 50 feet, far in excess of code requirements. And the buildings are all one story. This is a very modest center, and this restaurant is a very small building that will fit comfortably on the corner. The restaurant will have ample parking in terms of the code. And I want to mention that with some particularity because one of the findings, we believe erroneous findings of the Board of Adjustment, was that there was inadequate parking. There are 18 parking spaces designated for the Wendy's, in addition to a 10-car stacked drive-through area for the drive-through component. There is adequate area to park. There's adequate area to go through the drive-through. There's adequate area to bypass if you get in the drive-through and you change your mind or you want to park or we run out of time or whatever. There's adequate room to maneuver through a bypass lane, excuse me, to exit the site or to find a parking place. And we believe that the Board of Adjustment was in error in this particular regard when talking about the parking and the access and the compatibility of the Wendy's within the property and the adequacy of parking. I would mention just a couple of additional points. Going to your staff report, particularly pages 17, 18, and 19 of your kit, these recommendations address very clearly why the decision of the Board of Adjustment should be reversed. Again, on page 17, and I won't read all of them, there are adequate parking areas and off-street truck loading spaces for the anticipated number of occupants, employees, patrons, and the layout of the parking is convenient and conducive to safe operation. There is suitable landscaping or fencing alongside lot and rear lot lines adjacent to residential uses. As I said earlier, there's double the required landscaping. The proposed special exception will constitute an appropriate use in the area and will not substantially injure or detract from the use of the surrounding property or from the character of the neighborhood. This use and this special exception will be located on the corner. It will be a common use with a restaurant. It will operate in conjunction with the restaurant, and it will be very, very amply spaced from our neighbors. Just a couple of additional points. We have met both individually and collectively with many members of the community. We have enjoyed those discussions, and we want to make that clear to the board. We know we have folks here regarding this matter, and we have made attempts, particularly with the nearby property owners, to have discussions, and we've had considerable discussions, not with everyone in the room, but with a number of different people, particularly up and down Third Court. I'm going to submit a couple of things into the record, and I'm going to ask Ms. Lacari to come forward. We have obtained approval from the state of Florida and from Miami-Dade County to remove the right turn only sign at the intersection of Third Court and 135th Street. That's for cars coming out of the community and out of this property, going north on Third Court to 135th, which is our intersection, and wanting to go east or west. They can already go east. The state of Florida and Miami-Dade County have approved the removal of the right turn only sign. This was an important element in the discussion at the Board of Adjustment, and it's something that we have spent some time working on, and we're happy to present it. We think it's important. We think it goes to the standards in the code, and we think it goes to our compatibility with the community.